Last night at the 4 p.m., it's called the Pack the Parish Mass, which is where we invite some of the grades from the school to come to Mass with their families, and they're together with their classmates, so they're all here together, and it's just such a privilege to see them celebrating the Mass all together, and they may not be ready to come back to school tomorrow, but we are certainly excited to have them back. It's very quiet here when the kids are not present, and I must say it's been probably one of the singular highlights of my young priesthood so far, to spend time with the kids, to go to the school. I have the privilege to teach the 7th graders once a week on Tuesdays, and we love to visit the classrooms, and I am always amazed at the questions that they ask. Never underestimate the brain of a small child, because they will never cease to amaze you with what they know. And especially with the younger grades, we'll go in, and some of the classes they have like a box that they fill with questions for the priest. So we'll come in and they'll all stand up, and then one of the kids will draw like a question. And I'm always just shocked by the depth of some of these questions coming from 4 or 5-year-olds. And right, they have this unique ability to pinpoint what is true and what is good and what is beautiful, and to seek right, the answers to their questions. This past Thanksgiving, I was with my family, and I had the opportunity to celebrate Mass for them on Thanksgiving Day. And we did a special Mass that celebrated the 40th anniversary of my aunt and my uncle. And so my cousins were there with all of their children, and my brother was there with his wife, and my parents were there. And the little kids were lined up in the front so they could see. And I was setting up the kitchen table for Mass, and one of my cousin's sons, his name is Charlie. Charlie was watching me very intently, so I had the cloth there and my chalice and the ciboria. And I looked at him, and I could tell that his gears were turning. He was like, "Okay, Grant is setting up for Mass, but we're not in a church. What's going on right now?" And he looked at me and he was like, "Grant, what's the difference between celebrating Mass in a kitchen and celebrating Mass in a church?" And I was like, that's the most insightful question that I've ever heard come out of a 5-year-old's mouth. Thank you, Charlie. And I was like, well, one of the differences is we're with the people that we love most, and that's one of the blessings of a private Mass. The other really cool thing is that the private intention of the priest and then the intention of the people is the same thing, which is also very special. And kids like the ones at our school, like Charlie, right, they have this unique ability to wonder about the world around them and to seek what is true. And when we think about what that is, what is wonder? Wonder is the basis of all philosophy. It's the basis of all thought. We begin by asking the right questions, and that is the catalyst for us to pursue the truth and to pursue what is good. And wonder is not like a daydream. It's not, because when we're daydreaming, we're fantasizing. We're separated from reality. It's wishful thinking. Whereas wonder is always grounded in what is real. It's always grounded in what the senses can perceive, and therefore that allows us, right, to move forward and to continue to seek and to continue to ask questions. It's always driven by truth. And that is exactly what drives the wise men in today's gospel. It is that sense of wonder. We're still very much in the Christmas season. Do not take down your nativity scenes or your Christmas trees. The wise men are being driven by what they know is true. Right? The wise men were not dumb. They were incredibly intelligent people. They would have been steeped within the sciences of their day. They would have known the prophecies. They would have known how to trace the planets, to track the stars. And so them setting out to find Jesus, to find the Christ, it's not just on a whim. It's not like, well, it's that time of day, stars are out, let's go see if the Messiah is somewhere. They would have been tracing the prophecies, steeped in the prophecies, tracking the stars, waiting for the moments when they knew now is the time to go. They would have known within their bones that faith is never separated from what our minds can reason to naturally. And they would have done their homework and they would have been prepared for this moment. Based on what we know, based on the prior knowledge we have, the studying we've been doing, we know that now is the time. The Messiah has come. And so we go to seek him. Which is the exact opposite of what Herod does, the other major character in today's gospel. Herod is a daydreamer. Everything about his life was a construction. It was a fantasy. When my classmates and I we had the opportunity to go to the Holy Land, we visited his temple, which is still there. It's about 10 miles outside of Bethlehem. And Herod built his temple on a mountain he built himself because he was so overcome with anxiety and stress and fear that he would lose his power that he wanted to be able to see the land around him, to see if he was going to be attacked in any way. Right? And one of the most striking things from our gospel today is that Matthew is very clear in telling us that Herod recognizes that Jesus is the Christ. He tells the wise men, go and seek the Christ child. When you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go and worship him. So he recognizes Jesus as the Christ, but he chooses not to seek him. He sends someone else to do it. He refuses to change, which is something that wonder always drives us to do, to change, to live our life in a different way. When the children asked those questions in the classroom, when Charlie, when he asked that question to me on Thanksgiving, it was because he knew there's something special about the Mass, there's something special about what Grant is preparing to do, but there's something different here. We don't normally celebrate Mass right on a kitchen table, but we're doing it now. And so what I want to know is, why is this different? But it's still true and good and beautiful, but there's something different happening here. And that's exactly what wonder does. Continuing to ask those questions, it inspires us to live our life in a different way, which is what the wise men do. We are told at the end of the gospel that they travel home by a different path. And if that is true for the sciences, if it is true for the natural world, we continue to ask those questions to seek what is true and good and beautiful. It is entirely true for our relationship with the Lord. When we encounter him, when we develop a relationship with him, when we recognize we are loved by him, it moves us to live our life differently. And if that is true for children, if that's true for Charlie, if that's true for the wise men, then it is certainly true for us. The truth of the gospel, the truth of the incarnation inspires us to change and to live our life in a new way.